All right, now to foreign money inciting violence inside the USA. We're all over this story, and I haven't seen a lot of reporting on it. So yesterday there was a hearing in front of the House Ways and Means Committee about how foreign money coming into radical left groups being used to pay protesters or agitators, better word, to go to places like Minneapolis and cause trouble. LA, Portland, Oregon. So the money comes from a guy named Neville Roy Singham. This is the big guy. Lives in China, Shanghai. He's a communist. And he is raising hundreds of millions of dollars to destabilize the U.S. government. And joining us now from Washington, Washington is Congressman Kevin Hern from Oklahoma, who was a member of the House Ways and Means Committee. What did you learn yesterday in this hearing?
Well, thanks, Bill, for having me.
Sure.
It's the old saying, follow the money. And we've talked about this for years. We've had the opportunity under the Biden administration and now the Trump administration to refer some 11 cases to the IRS for investigation. This hearing validated this through our witnesses. Even the Democrat witness was caught in a lie about his nonprofit, his foundation being funded by a nonprofit that was funded by a billionaire from Switzerland. So foreign money coming in, motivating these folks to go out and do what they're doing, protesting against ICE, trying to break up, what we're trying to do as far as sending people back, as you just alluded to. The Democrats have consistently wanted illegals to be able to stay here. When you look at the vote today we're having on the SAVE Act to say you need to be a legal citizen, you need to show your voter ID whenever you go, your ID to go vote. We're trying to push back on this narrative that illegals are going to run this country, and the 501c3s that are out there that have been put forth by these foreign billionaires to fund these riots, to fund these protests, has got to stop, and that's what we're doing. We're investigating every one of them.
Okay, but it's not just Democrats. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent could have started revoking 501cs in October, and he didn't do it, and he won't talk about it. Every time you ask him, he runs away. Now, he made some kind of thing last week where he's going to try to get a big investigative unit, but that's 6 months ago, and he doesn't seem to be too bullish on this thing. President Trump himself asked me for information. I don't know whether you know this or not, which I handed over to him as an American citizen, not as a journalist. But he asked me, he says, give me the names of the 501cs that are taking Singham's money and the billionaire from Switzerland you mentioned, and others. There are others all over the country, world doing this. Give me the names of them, and we'll revoke their 501cs, which I did. But it doesn't seem to me to be a compelling issue in Congress right now, and most of it's the Democrats' fault, but not all.
No, you're exactly right. That's why we're having these hearings. We're going to have more to point out the issues. You probably saw the exchange with the Democrat witness yesterday where he was caught in a lie about, again, the funding of his organization. We had great witnesses on the panel that answered all the questions. The Democrats didn't want to talk about anything as far as fraudulent funding with the 501c3s. All they wanted to talk about our tariffs and President Trump's an evil person. Republicans don't care.
Right.
We'll dig through this and we'll find the information to give Secretary Bessent to do his job over there.
Now, as a member of Congress, do you really believe that most of your Democratic peers in the House want to give amnesty to bad foreign nationals? Do you believe they want to do that?
No, but they detract from the actual issue, because I think when you get it from away from the camera for a political piece, when they look at the policies, they will tell you that this is bad politics. In fact, after the hearing, many of the Democrats said, we've got to work on fixing this. This is an atrocity for America. They wouldn't say that at the hearing and on the camera, but behind the scenes, they know this is devastating for the freedoms of Americans, all Americans, because it can cut both ways. And that's something that we need to protect. It's our job in Congress. And that's what, again, when we're having these hearings, and Bill, not just the not-for-profits, the for-profits also. We've got sovereign wealth funds that are funding litigation against companies and not paying any taxes on it, taking the money back to Saudi Arabia and elsewhere to the tunes of hundreds of millions of dollars. And I've got a bill out there, a third-party litigation funding act, that goes after these particular situations to expose them for what they're doing, which is, quite frankly, to our financial system is just as devastating. It's driving up insurance costs for companies and for individuals across America. And we're not trying to stop any of the lawsuits that are going on, but we want transparency. We want to make sure that these foreign actors are paying their appropriate taxes. Most are not paying any taxes at all on these big multi-million-dollar lawsuits. So there's a whole host of things we need to be looking at when it comes to foreign actors. And both of these are really devastating to the American economy and to the American people.
Real briefly, because I want to get to the voting thing. When you say they're not paying any taxes on litigation, most people don't understand what you mean.
Yeah, so they have a sovereign wealth fund. They come in, they call it a capital asset to pre-fund a lawsuit, meaning like, let's just take a sovereign wealth fund from the Middle East. They'll come in and set up a fund and call it a capital investment. And then whenever it settles, they'll call it a capital gains. Well, capital gains are not paid by foreign individuals that are not U.S. citizens. So we're saying that
they make money here in our capitalistic system. They don't pay taxes. They ship the money back to whatever country they're from.
Correct. And even the local sovereign wealth funds or the wealth funds in the United States that set these up for litigation, they get them classified as capital gains as opposed to ordinary income. And so we're going after both of these.
I got it. Okay. It's more of a grift than anything else. Now I'll go back to your peers on the Democratic side of the aisle in the House. It's inexplicable they wouldn't want to know who's voting, but they're opposing the SAVE Act. They don't want voter ID. Do you believe most of these people on the Democratic side really believe that that's good for the country?
Let's go back to the 2020 census when President Trump tried to get a question in there, are you a U.S. citizen or not? That's where it starts. Who's in the household? Because that's the Apportionment Act that determines how many members of Congress you have in each state and where they are. And so that was contested by Democrats and then ultimately was set aside where we couldn't have their language in there. Now here we are. We're having, first of all, the SAVE Act, which says you have to be a U.S. citizen to vote in our elections.
Which is the law already.
It is the law. And then
Right.
on top of that is to have an ID like we do in Oklahoma to identify yourself when you go up to cast your vote. Certainly in federal elections, we have that responsibility. We have the opportunity to do that. And that's what we're going to be voting on today.
Yeah, and Democrats oppose that. Why?
Well, again, they're trying to protect the illegal immigrants in this country because they know that most of those are going to support the Democrats because the Democrats are supporting illegal immigration. And quite frankly, some of the people that are most put out by this or upset by this are the people who've done the legal immigration the right way. I just sent out a letter yesterday to my staff and others that for the last 25 years, we've legalized anywhere between 750,000 and 1 million people a year going through the system that we've always had. And so it's not that we're against immigration, we're against illegal immigration. And
Yeah, sure. I mean, the pathway, but you guys should pass a new updated immigration law, that's for sure. You're relying on 1952. Last question.
But it's still, Bill, it's still allowing almost 1 million people a year to come through the process.
Okay,
And,
but it needs to be... It needs to be more sharply defined as far as enforcement and penalties. That's what it needs. Right now, it's all over the place. And the states are obviously ignoring it in many, many instances. Last question. Do you believe that these organizations inside the United States, both nonprofit and profit, you believe the Justice Department is going to start to crack down on these people who are absolutely paying agitators to break down our system? Is that going to happen?
Yeah, to my knowledge, the first time since I've been here for almost 8 years that we've had a hearing on just this in Ways and Means to talk about the taxation policy, because this is a non-issue if the 501c3s are stripped of their non-tax status. And so we're going after that direction. There's been obviously very politicized hearings on judiciary and oversight on these, but we're going after it from a tax standpoint, which I think really brings in the Treasury Department, also from the DOJ standpoint. If Treasury is involved, we have a dual attack on these folks doing this. That if for the first time, certainly since in my adult life, we're doing things that haven't been done before. So I think we're going to be successful. We have a close working relationship with Secretary Bessent and the president, so we're going to make sure we move forward.
All right, if you see the secretary, tell him to come on this program because he's been disrespectful to us, and that's not good. Anyway, Congressman, we hope you will come back as well when anything significant happens. We really appreciate your time. Thank you.